So I listened to a podcast, Lex Friedman with Richard Heyer, and it's fantastic. Everyone should go ahead and watch that. It's very interesting. It brings up a lot of, um, well, there's a lot of misinformation around things like IQ, and I think that it's a very polluted discussion because there are so many political opinions in it rather than people objectively looking at it. I'm going to make a few statements here, but I'm going to share a trick for you guys at the end as well. So, really, no one cares what your IQ is. No one cares. It's kind of like if you were bragging about the size of your penis. Either people don't believe you, so you have, oh, I have an IQ of 200. People don't believe you. Or if they do believe you, then now you just seem like an arrogant, pretentious asshole. Similarly, if I sat here and I was like, oh, I have a 12-inch penis, either you don't believe me and you think I'm lying, or if I actually did, then you would be like, this guy's a fucking weirdo for talking about the size of his dick, which I would agree. It's kind of like when I see people do weird things like talking about how, oh, I'm a member of Mensa, or they walk around, telling people I'm a member of 999. And what's funny is that a lot of these people aren't members of Mensa or 999, but yet they like to claim it. I feel like it's some kind of weird, well, they're compensating, aren't they? They're compensating. People are very insecure, but people are insecure about everything. Everyone has something that they're insecure about. Everyone has something that bothers them, whether it's your physique, you don't like your body fat, you don't like your nose, you don't like your ears. There's something you're insecure about, and sometimes it's people's intelligence. Some people are insecure about multiple things. That's fine too. One thing I'm going to come back around to, though, and this is the trick for you guys, okay? I am really good at taking tests. That does not mean I'm intelligent. This is not a brag, okay? I'm going to tell you guys what the secret is to being good at taking tests, is to take them repeatedly. That's the secret. I know it sounds dumb, but this is a real thing, and it comes up in the podcast where he's talking with Richard Heyer, and he mentions about how it's important that the questions have novelty, right? So the questions, it's important that you haven't seen these questions before. That's one of the major factors of how an IQ test can be accurate, is because these are questions you haven't seen before. If you've seen these questions before, you're obviously going to score higher on them. You're going to do better at them. So, people have asked me, what was the trick to getting such a high SAT score and stuff like that? And it's like, well, I practiced it. Like, it's that simple. It's not because, like, oh, I'm such a fucking genius. I just sat down and got a perfect score. Like, no. You don't. That doesn't work that way. I mean, it does for some people. Some people are just so damn smart, they take it once and they get a perfect score. But the SAT is a known entity. It's kind of like if I said to you, we're going to have a sporting event, and you know what the events are. Like, we're going to do the decathlon. Well, if you know the decathlon, are you going to spend your time practicing the clean and jerk, or are you going to spend your time practicing the events of the decathlon? Well, you know which events you should be practicing. It's like, oh, I'm going to compete in gymnastics, so I'm going to spend my time doing figure skating? No, you wouldn't. You would spend your time practicing gymnastics. I'm going to get into a ring, and it's a boxing match. I'm not going to spend my time practicing judo and BJJ. It's a boxing match. So you know what the entity is. You know, if it's amateur, you got 2-minute rounds. If it's pro, you got 3-minute rounds. You know the constraints of this. MMA, you have these 5-minute rounds. Why would you practice 20-minute rounds? You wouldn't. Or at least if you're smart, you wouldn't. You would practice what you're about to do. I want to get better at playing piano. I'm not going to practice the flute. The same thing's true. The SAT is relatively consistent. Like, it's not like the SAT has incredibly different scores and incredibly different, standards and all kinds of stuff like that. It doesn't. It's basically the same test over and over again. Even if you have different questions, it's basically similar questions over and over and over again. So what you do is you get an SAT study guide, and you take those classes, those SAT prep classes, you take those classes, and then you take the pre-SAT over and over and over again, because the pre-SAT is very close to the SAT, and at least at my school, you were able to get the pre-SAT without having to pay for it. I don't know if that's still true anymore. I know they've changed the SAT. It's no longer just math and verbal. There's a written section now, but I would imagine it's probably pretty similar. Plus, you can find all these pre-SAT practice SATs online. Do those. Do them over and over and over again. The more you do it, the higher you will score. You will watch your score go up. Each time you do it, you will get better scores. And then you're going to figure out, like, these are the things I'm bad at. And so you'll spend more time on that. So, like, maybe your verbal sucks because you suck at the analogy section. Spend more time getting used to, like, it's so dumb, actually. Like, there's a lot of good criticism of the SAT. Some of these analogies, they're dumb. You have to basically get into the same logic and mindset as the person who wrote the question. You know, it's not as straightforward as, like, tree is to branch as, like, arm is to body. Like, they're not that straightforward. It's like tree is to branch as, and then it's like finger, arm, limb. Like, they give you very similar words, so it's like any one of those could be a branch, you know? So it's just a weird thing. Like, you have to get into the mindset of what they're looking for. And that's basically how you succeed at it, is you give them the answer that they want. It doesn't even have to necessarily be the most logical answer, because you could easily explain why you chose this word for the analogy. Like, well, I looked at it and thought to myself, you know, a leaf is more like a finger than a branch. But maybe they were looking for finger. Like, it's dumb. I'm not sitting here telling you that the SAT is a perfect test, because it isn't. But I am telling you that you can practice it, and you can get a higher SAT score by practicing it. The same thing is true of the ASVAB. If you guys are interested in joining the military, or for whatever reason you're going to take the ASVAB, you can get an ASVAB study guide, and you can go through it, and you can practice it. And if you take the ASVAB repeatedly, you will get a higher and higher score each time you take it. Yeah, that's how it works. So the same is not true of IQ tests. IQ tests, I've taken tons of them over the years, and I've had the fun ones where I'm there for like 6 hours straight, one-on-one with a person. That sucks. Those ones suck. The online ones are super easy. Like, the online ones, the more often you take them, your score will go up. I don't have a trick for you on the ones where you guys sit down with like a neuropsychologist and they actually put you through it. There's not a trick for that one, because every time I've ever taken one, it's different. Or at least it's slightly different in ways that I didn't anticipate. So I can sit here and tell you that for all the different IQ tests I've taken, each one has been a very different experience, especially whenever you're sitting down with someone one-on-one and they're verbally asking you things, or they're making you put together puzzles or whatever. I mean, I think it would have been like 1992 the first time I took an IQ test, so I've been like 8. And I've taken tons of IQ tests over the years. They make me come in and do these things, and I hate them every single time. It's miserable. You're mentally exhausted and fried by the end. But for things like the ASVAB or the SAT or the ACT or any of these other standardized tests, study for it. Like, you can study for these things, you can prepare for these things, and you can take the test over and over and over again, like the pre-tests. You know, they have practice ASVABs online. Take them over and over and over again, you'll get better at them. So I know that this is kind of unrelated to like the stuff I usually talk about, you know, because I like to focus on things like strength and conditioning and sports and all this stuff like that, but I just felt like this was something that needed to be addressed, or at least someone should share this trick for people. You can massively improve your SAT score just by taking it repeatedly. Same thing true of the MCAT. Everyone was so impressed with my MCAT score, and it's like, you wouldn't be impressed if you knew how many hours I spent preparing for it and taking practice MCATs. Like, it's not like I just sat down and was like, oh, I'm just so goddamn smart, I'm going to go through this whole thing and just blow it out of the water. It's like, no. Like, I spent more time studying for that one test than I spent for all of my classes. Like, if you were just able to quantify how much time I spent studying for various final exams for different classes I was taking, I probably put more time into studying for that one single MCAT than I did for all of the final exams I ever took in my entire undergrad. Or at least it felt that way. The effort level and the time investment was just... And that's the secret, though. That's the trick. That's the trick to it, is that you spend a whole bunch of time studying for it and taking practice exams, and the more practice exams you take, the better you get at it. So, there you guys have it. That's the answer. It's no different than I tell people all the time. If you want to compete in powerlifting, just start doing a whole bunch of powerlifting meets. Even if you're not ready, just do them so you get the experience in. Because each time you do it, it's easier mentally. Same thing for Olympic weightlifting. If you just showed up and you were like, this is it, this one counts, you're going to fuck up because it's too much pressure. But if you've done like a dozen weightlifting meets, then like you kind of get used to the rhythm, you get used to the way that things work, you're more relaxed. You know how to time your warm-ups, you know how to be prepared. Like the other factors start to fall by the wayside. You just kind of just show up and make your lifts. But that's not going to go that way on your first one. Your first one, you're going to be all nerves. It's going to screw you up. Same thing for powerlifting. Like, just go do a bunch of meets. That's the best way for you to get better at competing, is just to do a bunch of meets, because you get more and more comfortable with it. And the same thing's true. Boxing, MMA, dude, like, just go. Go do it. You're an amateur anyways. Go do a bunch of them, and you'll find that you get more and more comfortable each time that you do it. So the same thing's true when you take tests. And that's it. That's what I got for you guys. So if you like the video, like the video. If you found this useful, comment below. Tell me why it's useful. If you have used this and you found the same thing, that, hey, the more I did this, I got better at it because I just got more comfortable with it. Yep, comment below. Share it. If you guys like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe. I hope this helps you. I do. I realize that most of my demographics say that it's males between the ages of 30 and 40 that watch this, but I don't know, man. I mean, maybe you got kids, so you're concerned about their SAT scores. Use this. Help them. It'll put people way ahead. People think that, oh, wow, look at your SAT score. You must be great. Really, you just practice for it. That's the secret. So, hope this helps, and thank you for your time.